All right, let's use our example with our shirts where we're going to sell these shirts for $15 each. The cost to buy each shirt is $5 plus you had to pay $50 in rent for the booth. So you can set up your cost volume profit income statement with this example as follows. You've got your $15 sales price, you've got your variable cost per unit, and then you have your fixed cost per unit. How do you get this? Well, that brings me to this right here. It's very important to figure out your contribution margin per shirt, and in this example it's going to be $10. So it means every shirt contributes $10 to covering your fixed costs, and after you've covered your fixed costs it will lead to income. Well, an important question to ask is, what do we have to sell to cover our fixed costs, our $50? In other words, for our income statement to be zero. So I can take that and express it this way, right? So in other words, let's solve for Q. What do we need to sell? Well, you basically take your $50, adding 50 to both sides, divide by 10, and you basically have the formula that is used to calculate break even. And you take your fixed costs divided by, so your fixed costs here, divided by your contribution margin per unit. Another way to express this is your contribution margin ratio, and that's basically, oh sorry, 5 shirts is what your answer is. Your contribution margin ratio, what you do is you take your contribution margin, which is your 10 per unit, divided by your sales price of 15 to get a ratio, and that is 67%. So the way you can interpret that is, for every dollar of sales, 67 cents goes to covering your fixed costs and hopefully leading you to profit. We use that ratio, the contribution margin ratio, as a way of figuring out what your break-even is in sales dollars, not shirts. So you take the formula being similar, you're going to take your fixed cost per unit, fixed cost in total, divided by this contribution margin ratio to get your number or the amount of sales you would need to break even, and it's $75. Now you could have gotten it knowing that we need to sell 5 shirts to break even, and that as far as each shirt sells for $15, that would get you to your 75. The reason for showing you this, though, is companies don't sell just one shirt, and that it's a quicker method to be able to figure out what our sales revenues need to be to, say, break even. Now, we don't want to break even, of course, so you can take this analysis and you can look at how many shirts you would need to sell to make a certain amount of profit. Well, let's go with 500. So basically what we're saying is we want that to be 500. Well, let's go through. If we take this and set it horizontally, we can solve for Q to see what we need to sell. And it's, again, what the formula is you take your amount of profit you want to make plus your fixed costs and divide it by your contribution margin. And here we get 55 shirts. So you'd have to sell 55, and when you take 10 times 55 and subtract your 50, you got your $500 operating income. Another thing you might want to answer is, okay, how many additional shirts do we need to sell to add another 100 to our profit? You can do it, in other words, rather than going through and setting this up to be 600, you can do it incrementally, because we know that each shirt contributes $10. That contribution margin is so important. So basically we can see that to get that additional number of units, or in this case shirts, you take your additional profit divided by your contribution margin. So since each shirt contributes $10, it would take 10 shirts to add $100 to your bottom line. So these are different ways of looking or using that cost volume profit analysis to answer different types of questions management might have.